I'm the FanFic Critic. I read it, you listen. Now, who here knows about Hewy Lewis? Or more appropriately, Hewy Toonmore Lewis. He changed his name recently. You know, the host of Hewy's Animated Reviews. You remember him now? Good, because in the past I reviewed 2 of his fanfics. Today I'm going to be reviewing another fanfic of his. One key difference, though, that separates this fanfic from his other 2 fanfics. This one he actually wrote on his own. That's right, no co-written crap, nothing. This is all purely Hewy Lewis. So finally I can judge Hewy Lewis as a writer by reading something that he wrote completely by himself. Yay! The fanfic is called Maternal Instincts, and it's a Ben 10 fanfiction. It's rated K, it's in English, has 33 reviews, and here's the kicker, it has 10 chapters. Don't worry, it's short enough where I can read it out loud in its entirety. So let's not waste any time. Grandpa Max sighed as he examined the flat tire on the RV. Great, just what we needed. He glanced up at the cloudy gray sky. Okay, let's pause for a second. The dialogue should not be in the middle of that line of text. It should be in its own separate line. I will forgive Hewy Lewis for this, though, because this is one of his earlier stories. But in case he wants to revamp the story in the future, he should probably go in here and fix that. Ben poked his head out the door. Grandpa, what's the problem? Gwen stuck her head out too. I hope it's not serious. It's just a flat tire. I'll have it fixed in a minute. Ben sighed. Boring. I'm going back inside. Well, I'm going to take a walk, Gwen said, as she made her way into the nearby forest. Well, don't go too far. It looks like rain. So the forest looks like rain, or do you mean to say it looks like it's going to rain? Grandpa Max called after her. The forest was silent except for the occasional chirping of birds, and the air smelled like ozone, hinting at the future rain. It's so nice here, the girl mused. I should get out more often. Again, the dialogue should be in its own separate line, not in the middle of the paragraph. She was so busy examining the view that she didn't see the tree root in front of her until she tripped and fell over, rolling down the hill and screaming all the way until she landed with a thump at the bottom. Ow! Glancing upwards, Glenn realized that she was in front of what looked like an ivy-covered cave. On closer examination, she realized that the cave was made of entwining tree branches and covered in ivy. Quietly, she moved forward, not sure of what she'd find. As her eyes adjusted to the dim light, she saw, nestled in a pile of leaves, a huge egg about half her height and colored robin's egg blue with lighter blue swirls. It's beautiful. She breathed. Quietly stepping towards it. For a brief moment her eyes widened and her pupils dilated, but as soon as it passed. Shaking her head, she turned her attention back on the egg. What are you doing here all by yourself? She cooed. Bending down and picking it up, she whispered, Don't worry, I'm going to take good care of you. Gwen, where are you? Startled out of her thoughts, Gwen looked at the cave entrance. Of familiar voices floated in on the breeze. Okay, that should be reworded. It should say, Glenn looked at the cave entrance to hear familiar voices that floated in on the breeze. That's what it should say. I'm coming, she yelled back, and, egg in her arms, ran out of the ivy-covered tree cave and climbed up the hill where she found her grandfather and cousin waiting for her. Where have you been? Grandpa Max asked her sternly. We've been looking all over for you. I'm sorry, the girl replied. I got kinda lost. Why are you calling her the girl? Oh, whatever. Well, at least you're okay. Come on, let's go back to the RV. It looks like it'll rain at any moment. As they headed back through the woods, it should say through, but he has it down as though the woods or whatever. Ben noticed that Gwen was hiding something behind her back. What you got there? He asked. Nothing, just mind your own beeswax, she snapped at him. The boy moved backwards. Okay, yeesh, no need to yell. As he ran off, Gwen took out the egg from behind her back and whispered softly to it as she returned to the RV. Once she got there, she wrapped it in towels and hid it in the back so no one could find it. What she didn't realize was, why is there a comma there? There shouldn't be a comma after realize. Was that the creature whom the egg belonged to, okay, 1 O for the word to, not to, had just returned to the tree cave, only to find the nest empty. With a roar of anger, it rushed out of the cave, giant wings flapping, for it was none other than a true living dragon. Interesting. Seeing I'm not very familiar with Ben 10, I'm not sure if stuff like this is plausible on that show, but I'm just going to go for it. Okay, 1 chapter down, 9 more to go. Let's take a look at chapter 2. Gwen couldn't keep her mind of the egg. Don't you mean off the egg? I wonder what type of animal laid it. I've never seen one like it before, she thought. It had seemed to have an effect on her. Max noticed that she has not said anything, okay, anything should be 1 word, not 2, since they left. Concerned, he asked, "Are you okay, Gwen? You haven't made a peep. What's bothering you?" "Nothing. Nothing at all," she replied. Ben went to sleep about 30 minutes ago and she could hear his deep breathing. Enough was enough. What? Okay. Is it supposed to be nighttime now? Oh, whatever. Let's continue. Enough was enough. Gwen got up and went to the back to check on the egg. She hid it in the cupboard under her bed. After closing the blind, she made sure Ben was actually sleeping, then went to the egg. She stared deeply into the sapphire shell. She seemed to like rubbing it lovingly. She can feel the creature moving inside. Once she was done, should be a comma after done, Gwen put it back and went to sleep. Little did she know that the rightful owner was hot on their tail, the mother dragon. Gwen! Gwen! Gwen, get up! She heard the voice echo through her head. It seemed so familiar. She obeyed the voice and opened her eyes. There was Ben standing over her. Realizing it was Ben, she replied, "Ugh, Ben, what time is it?" He rolled his eyes and said, "It's 12:30 in the afternoon." "What? Why didn't you wake me up earlier?" Gwen asked. Ben replied, "Grandpa wouldn't let me. I thought that I would have to go ghost freak and sneak back and wake you. Hey, your eyes are a different color. What happened?" Grumbling, and there should be a comma after grumbling, Gwen got up and went to the bathroom. Her eyes are now turning blue. "Cool," she said under her breath. I'm sorry, but if I realized that my eyes were going from gray to brown, I think I would have a little more of a reaction than, "Cool." So she got in the shower and got dressed. When Ben left, comma, she went to the egg. It felt cold, so she went and got a hot water bottle. She put a thin layer of towels on top and set the egg on it. She just sat there staring at the sky blue swirls. After an hour or so, she put tea back. Don't you mean it? Back with the water bottle. "No, you stay here." Shouldn't it say "now you stay here"? She exited the RV and found Ben and Max chattering. Chattering? I guess that kind of works. Max spotted her and said, "Oh, good you're up. Okay, Y-O-U''RE, not Y-O-U-R. Want to grab some lunch? There, okay, the T in there should be capitalized because it's the beginning of a new sentence. There is a dinner down the street." Don't you mean diner? D-I-N-E-R, not D-I-N-N-E-R, because D-I-N-N-E-R is dinner, as in dinner. Something that you eat in the afternoon or in the evening. Shut up, it's ramen. "Yeah, I would like that," answered Gwen. So she strolled down, okay, it says so the strolled down to the dinner. Okay, it should say, so they strolled down to the diner with the egg still in the RV. Okay, are you just going to end the sentence like that? "It started to squeak." Oh, I see. These 2 sentences should be 1 sentence. It should say, with the egg still in the RV, comma, it started to squeak. Gwen felt them what? Felt what exactly? Can she feel it squeaking? What? Could she feel the sound waves of it squeaking? Could she sense that it was squeaking? Be more specific, please. Gwen felt them but ignored them, thinking it was a car, but the mom knew what they were and started off again. What? That made no sense. As they strolled onto the diner, okay, it should say as they strolled into the diner. Gwen was still annoyed by the squeaking like a fly buzzing in the ear. "Do you guys hear that?" she asked. "Hear what?" said Max. Sorry, I meant to say Max, and it should say asked Max. "Oh, then nothing. Boy, am I hungry. I can eat a whole hamburger," Ben said, almost drooling. When they arrived, comma, there was almost no one there. Everybody ordered. Gwen was next. Okay, if everybody ordered, she wouldn't be next, because when you say everybody, you mean all of them already ordered. It should say, instead of everybody ordered, it should say Ben and Max ordered first, and then have it say Gwen was next. The waitress faced her and said, "Now what would you like?" Gwen answered, "May I have the 16-ounce New York strip ultra rare?" Everyone was staring at her. Gwen," said Ben, "do you know how big that is? It's like the size of the table." Ben said, shocked. Okay, you don't need to say Ben said shocked when the last line implied that he was the one speaking. I know. Gwen just tore up the steak like she has not eaten in a month. She just shocked everybody. She just shocked everybody, even the waitress. When they were done, comma after done, Max paid the bill and put the tip on the table. "Wow, looks like it is going to rain. We better hurry back." Dark clouds were rolling in, and you can hear the rumble of the thunder. Frightened, Gwen asked, "Can I get an umbrella? I absolutely hate the rain. I don't want to take that chance." Max looked at her and said, "Gwen, I thought you liked the rain. What's gone into you?" asked Ben. "First your eyes change, then you eat a cow, ultra rare. Next you hate the rain." When Gwen didn't answer, they bought an umbrella anyway. Anyway should be one word, not two. Gwen was the first to get in the RV. She closed the curtain to the room and checked on the egg. She heated back up the water and put it on her bed. "Was it you that was squeaking to me?" she asked. "Gwen, who are you talking to?" She heard Ben. Thinking quickly, she answered, no one, Ben." So she put it away to stop suspicion in them and came out. Okay, let's move on to chapter 3. Gwen was feeling really drowsy after that big lunch. Even though it was only 3:45, she went to bed. Her dream was just a swirl of blues and purples. When she awoke, it was sun. How will I have it say, when she awoke, comma, the sun was still down. The sun was still down? How about have it say the sun was down? Don't have it say still down, because you're implying that it was down the entire day. And if the sun was down the entire day, then it wasn't day, it was night. She sat for a while, taking advantage of the quit. Could you please explain to me what you mean by that? Until she heard that squeaking again. Oh, I think she means to say I think he meant to say quiet. Well, you didn't spell it right. You need an E at the end to say quiet. She followed the noise until it led her to the cupboard where the egg was. She took it out and rubbed it for 30 minutes while talking to it. It was ice cold. She did not want to wake Ben or Max, so she just laid down with it. Holding it close to her body, she could still feel it moving around. Wait, what? She could still feel it moving it around. Whatever. Once in a while she would hear it squeak, and then it fell silent again. Soon she fell into a deep sleep. When she awoke again, Max was still sleeping, but Ben was up in the shower. She quickly put the egg away before Ben came out. She got her toothbrush and towel ready for when Ben came out. They both were still half asleep. So when Ben passed, they did not speak or even glance at each other. She closed the door and opened the toothpaste. When she was finished, she smiled at herself. Herself should be one word, not two. Her teeth seemed to have grown sharper and longer. Also, she also seemed much taller. What's happening to me, she thought as she entered the shower. When Ben and Max left for breakfast, Gwen chose to stay home. There she can tend to her egg without should be one word, not two, without anyone should be one word, not two, bothering her. Something told her to clean it. So she went and got a washcloth. Okay, why the hell is the period? Whatever. She wiped it down, then dried it. She was feeling hungry and went to the fridge and got a snack. The snack turned out to be a feast. She had 4 eggs raw, 10 slices of cheese, 13 slices of raw bacon, a gallon of milk, and a loaf of bread. Once she was full, Gwen went back to her egg. She finished cleaning it and replaced the water in a bottle. All she did was sit there and rock it. The squeaking continued. Ben was the first to get back. That was good. Ben said, rubbing his stomach. I need to get some water. They were all out of drinks. Ben soon discovered the now empty fridge. Whoa, the fridge is empty. Gwen arrived at the source of the shouting. Ben turned to her looking surprised. What did you do while we were gone? What? I was hungry, Gwen said, blushing. Ben was heading to the cupboard where the egg was. Well, I have a bottle of water in here. Panicking, Gwen thought quickly. Ben, there is a gas station across from here. Here, take my $5. Okay, do you mean like $5? Maybe you should have the word 5 instead of the number 5 and buy something, she said, giving her cousin a $5 bill. Shocked, Ben said, okay. Do not have the abbreviation for okay. O-K-A-Y. It's not that hard to spell. Ben took the money and left. Gwen plopped down on the bed and sighed in relief. It's okay. He did it again. He is gone. No. Don't you mean now? You don't have to worry, Gwen said while tending to her egg. The creature seemed to be rubbing against her hand. Gwen, we're home, she heard Max call out. She quickly put the egg away and came out. How was breakfast? Her voice came in deep and scratchy. She cleared her throat and repeated the message. Good. You sure you are okay? Ben asked suspiciously. Yes. She seemed to feel lonely all of a sudden. Could I be feeling what the egg feels? She thought. Looks like we need to go shopping. All the food is gone, she heard Max. She heard Max said, maybe? The squeaking soon became unbearable. She couldn't think or even speak. Ben was speaking to her, but she couldn't hear him. She had her head in her hands, trying to straighten her thoughts. When it started to stop, Gwen told them, may I go to the store? May I go to the store to pick up some stuff? Sure. So she grabbed some money and left. It wasn't a long walk, but with the squeaking it seemed like hours. Let's move on to chapter 4. Gwen arrived at the store when the squeaking suddenly stopped. Relieved, she walked into the store, unaware of the many people pointing their fingers at her and laughing out loud. Scanning the store for her sensational appetite, Gwen's cart was filled with raw meats, fish, and chicken. Gwen came up to the register. The man working on stared at the large filled cart and gasped. He finally finished scanning all of her produce. Gwen, irritated, asked, well, how much? Shocked, he replied, $250.99. I don't have that kind of money. Her eyes started to glow red. Well, I guess you can't get it, honey, the clerk growled. Gwen's eyes began to glow crimson. She began to scowl and said to herself should be one word, not two, what is wrong with me? Gwen's eyes returned to normal as she walked out, still growling. As soon as the girl walked out, the incessant squeaking began again all the way to the RV. When Gwen returned home, Max and Ben's face looked angry. Where have you been, dweeb, and where's the food? Ben growled along with his stomach. Then he stared at the egg. Ooh. Okay, the egg is now out in the open. Ben licked his lips hungrily. Hey, you saved that egg to yourself. Mind if I eat it? So, is the egg supposed to be tiny? Oh, whatever. Ben moved in closer when Gwen used her newly formed claws to swipe him. Listen, dweeb, you can touch my clothes, you can touch my food, but never will you touch my egg. If you do it again, I swear by the bloody bowels of heck. Of heck? Well, it is rated K, never mind. I will annihilate you. You got that? The girl... Why is the G in girl capitalized? She screamed loud and clear. Eep, sure, Gwen, whatever you say. Heh heh. Ben swallowed, frightened. His teeth were shaking so loud you could hear it. Not only were his teeth shaking, but his whole entire body. Gwen walked toward her bed as Ben crouched down and quivered. This is all over the place. It really is. So now they are in the bedroom. I don't get it. When Gwen jumped upon her bed and her face became innocent and motherly, Grandpa Max stared at her suspiciously as she fell asleep. Well, I guess it is an RV. I don't know. But I thought that with RVs you kind of had your own separate quarters in a way. Whatever. As Gwen slept, Ben and Max were talking about her. What has gotten into her? She nearly sliced me. When did her nails get so sharp? Ben carried on. Max sighed. I don't know. Oh, by the way, this is chapter 5. I'm getting really worried. As they peeked into her bed, they saw that she was hugging her egg close to her. But I bet that weird egg has something to do with it. When Gwen isn't making any improvements, Ben, you gotta get that egg, Max said with his head down. They closed the curtain and let her sleep in peace. Gwen kept on tossing and turning in the bed. She was having nightmares. She would wake up, then go back to bed. In her dreams, they were just swirls, and the egg was just sitting there. I wouldn't really say that's a nightmare, then, if that's all you're dreaming about. A week later, Max and Ben continued their conversation about the problem. Okay, I can go 4 arms and wrestle it from her, or Diamond Head, Ben rambled on. Max thought for a while, then spoke up. No, I'll try to distract her while you get it. So they sat there thinking. I love the use of punctuation mark at the end of that sentence. Maybe we should check on her. Someone has to go, and I'm not, Max said. Ben grumbled and went into the bedroom. It was a pretty disturbing sight. Gwen's skin had a blue hue to it. Her mouth was full of sharp teeth. Her long fingernails had turned into claws. She was sitting in the corner rocking the egg. She was rubbing it lovingly. The blinds were closed to block out the sunlight. Ben gathered up his courage and spoke. Gwen. She automatically faced him with rage in her eyes. She bared her teeth and roared, "What do you want, insect?" Ben drew back but continued. Gwen, you should come out now. You have been in here for a week by yourself. We are getting worried. She faced the egg again and said, I wasn't alone. I have my child to be with me. Glenn glanced back to Max. He did hand signals for him to continue. Maybe you should give me the egg, or put it away for a while. Ben said, taking steps towards her. Just then she roared in pain. Her shirt started to rip. 2 long blue and black wings tore out of her back. Never, she roared in anger and hate. She leapt off the floor and broke into the roof of the RV. Then she shot high into the air. Ben was frozen in his spot. He mustered up some words to say, Grandpa, did you see that? Max was staring at the huge hole Gwen left behind. I think she was heading into the forest. Ben, go and bring her back. Ben was messing with the Omnitrix. I'm already on it, and there was a blinding green flash. There was Ben standing as XLR8, one of his alien forms. I'll go see to Grumpy Girl. You stay here. He zoomed off in the direction Gwen flew. Meanwhile, in the forest, Gwen landed in a spot she found safe with her egg. I'm sorry for that, she whispered to the egg. I had to get away from them. They were going to take you away. We're safe now. The soft squeaking was still present. She looked up from the egg to find nest supplies, so she walked off, but not far from her precious eggs. Once the nest was built, she put the egg in it and laid down to relax. Looking uncomfortable, Gwen said to the egg, excuse me. She gritted her teeth, breathing heavily, and squinted her eyes in pain as a long sapphire tail burst through her pants. She then breathed a sigh of relief and went back to her egg. Sorry about that. Mommy just had to relieve some pain. Gwen perked her head up when she heard XLR8 coming. Within seconds, he was there. It's all right. Mommy will be right back. She stood up, walking over to XLR8 with fire in her eyes. Her tail waved back and forth in annoyance. Backing off, XLR8 said, Gwen, I don't want to fight you. Just calm down and give me the egg. He was stopped right there by the sound of her roaring. Never. If you touch my baby, I swear I will tear you in my fangs. She then quickly growled in pain and closed her eyes as her shoes ripped open, revealing that each of her feet now had 3 toes and long, sharp claws. While changing, she cannot move much due to the pain. Wrong! Do! It should be D-U-E, not D-O! Taking advantage of the moment, he zoomed to the nest and stole the egg. When Gwen opened her eyes, now slitted, she saw him do the act. She screeched in anger. XLR8 put the egg down. Gwen now was up and charging straight toward him. She slashed him with her talons. With his quick reflexes, XLR8 dodged the attack with ease. He went under her and kicked her at her soft underbelly. Gwen flew up high in the air and swooped down on him like an eagle on a rabbit. The Omnitrix insignia started to flash red and beep. Noticing it, XLR8 ran as fast as he could before it powered down. Gwen changed her diving course towards the egg. She landed with a thud in front of it. She roared in pain as her azure rings grew longer and bigger. Her tail was getting longer and more powerful and started to sprout spikes on its tips. Her pants ripped completely off, her shirt barely hanging on, her neck stretched out about half the length of her body. Her orange hair became a horse-like mane hanging off her neck. Her face pushed forward, forming a long snout with fangs sticking out of the front. Large, shiny black horns emerged from her forehead and reaching back to her now pointed ears. She now became a full dragon. She scooped up the egg in her claws and flew off again. Max appeared with the RV. "Was that Glenn?" he asked, astonished. A voice behind them replied, "Yep, that was a dragon all right." Max and Ben whirled around to find a tall, skinny, geeky-looking boy with large, thick glasses. He was also dressed like a medieval knight. He looked at them and said, "You might need my help." Well, let's move on to Chapter 6. I'll give Hewy Lewis some credit for being creative. "Who the heck are you?" Ben asked violently. "There is no quotations at the beginning of that sentence." Wow. I know this was written a while ago, Hewy, but seriously, you didn't bother to check your grammar before you posted this? "Ben, be nice," Max scolded. The knight pushed up his glasses and said, "The name's Nick, but my friends call me Hogarth the Destroyer. Looks like you have a dragon problem that needs fixin'. I know a lot about dragons. Here, I have a book about it." Nick pulled out a thick library book with a picture of a red dragon on it. Max took the book and looked around. "We better get to the RV. We can talk there." While walking there, Ben noticed that the armor on Nick was not metal. It was cardboard. When they got to the RV, Nick sat down and flipped through the book. He stopped at the page with an egg on it that looked like the one Glenn had. Nick put his finger on the page while scanning for what he wanted. He stopped his finger and said, "Ah, here it is, Siemens. That is the only type of dragon that lays that kind of egg. Once the egg is laid, the mother puts a spell over it. The spell differs from person to person. It must have been a first-time mom. The spell is supposed to kill anything or one that comes too close to the egg, except for the mother. They are the most dedicated of mothers. I bet the real mother is tracking us for the egg. The egg will let out distress calls from inside the shell. Only the mother can hear them." Max looked very worried. "So once she comes here and finds the egg is gone, will she continue to track the egg?" "Yes. Then go after the person with it and kill her or him." Okay, the T and then should be, well, actually, there shouldn't be a period after your yes. There should be a comma. Ben and Max looked at each other. They both said, "Gwen." "Well, no shit. Who else has the egg?" Ben looked at Nick and replied, Nick, is it? Can you track the dragon and get the egg?" Nick looked at him. "Yes, I can." Max said, "Then do it." Well, that was charming and nice of you, Max. Later, Nick pushed up his glasses while he walked near a large talon track. "She must have taken off here," he said hoarsely. He began to examine it while looking at his book. He looked back and forth to the track and text on the book. Nick leaned into the track and began to sniff it. Ben and Max looked at each... Why is he E and each capitalized? It doesn't need to be capitalized, so uncapitalize it. At each other in disgust. Grandpa, are you sure he can help?" Ben asked, watching Nick lick the dirt in the track. "Well, we'll see, heh," he replied in a blush of bewilderment. Nick suddenly pushed himself up. "She went that way." Nick pointed to a nearby town where it was having its 12th annual Renaissance Fair. "Let us head off," he cried. They headed into the RV and drove off. Meanwhile, Gwen searched for a place in the town where she could rest. "Here's a good place, my baby," she whispered. She swooped down into an empty tent. She examined the inside where there was a phony... If the tent is empty, that means there's no one in the tent. So do not say she swooped down into an empty tent if the tent isn't empty, because if it has people in it, that means that it's not empty. Duh! She examined the inside where there was a phony, comma, dragon, get rid of the comma, where it was only 2 people dressed in a costume. You insolent humans, we are nothing like this. Gwen used her newly acquired fire-breathing ability to burn the roof of the tent. I am a dragon, not these puny dweebs in costume, she roared in fury. She then used her fire breath to scare away the people. When the RV arrived, people were running for their lives away from the fair. Ben got out and tried to find his cousin. Surely enough, she was thwacking away at security guards with her powerful tail. Gwen, shouted Ben, please stop, we just want to help you. Gwen stared angrily at Ben. Okay, the B in Ben should be capitalized because it's a name! At Ben and shouted, no you don't, you just want to take my baby away, I'll show you. Suddenly fire erupted from her mouth and shot out at Ben. Ben, shouted Max, but it was too late. Soon enough Ben was engulfed in a sea of flames, but when the flames died down, there stood in Ben's place Heat Blast. I just love the way he ends these chapters, they just end. So let's move on to chapter 7, which is short. Another thing about these chapters, they vary in length. Some of them are long, other ones are short, and this is a short one. Nick was looking at Heat Blast, then at Max, who was breathing a sigh of relief. Wow, he yelled, nice trick. Now it's my turn. He bravely ran in front of Gwen. He took a deep what? A deep breath? No, mighty dragon. Then he deepened his voice. Prepare to be slain. He drew his plastic sword and pointed it at her. Gwen looked down at him, befuddled. She hunched her head back and let out a long tongue of flames. Nick ducked just in time to dodge it. When he looked back up, his sword was melted. He was frozen in a spot with his eyes growing wide. Well, what do you expect? It's made of plastic. Gwen gave a sneer and hunched her head back again. Max screamed out, Ben. Heat Blast jumped out and saw Nick about to be fried. He sprinted to him yelling, move, Nick, quick, or move, Nick, move. Just before Gwen let out a stream of fire, he pushed Nick out of the way. Now he was struck by the blast. After the fire, there was smoke everywhere. Just then a huge stream of fire came out of the smoke. It hit Gwen right in the chest. She reared back and roared in pain. Heat Blast was about to let out another one until he saw a police line all around them. Then a tank pulled up and aimed right at them. Heat Blast ran away from Gwen. The tank was still aimed at the spot where he was, at Gwen. He then blasted himself over the police and ran out of the fair just in time before the Omnitrix started to power down. When Ben reverted, he went back to Max and Nick. He looked up at Max and asked, Grandpa, what's going to happen? Max frowned and replied, I don't know, and fell silent. Gwen looked up and saw the tank and growled. The tank fired right at her, but her eye was much faster. She jumped into the air and took flight. The captain looked up and yelled at the officers, open fire. The police obeyed and pulled out their guns. They shot at Gwen, but the bullets bounced off her hard scales without a scratch, should be one word, not two. Then the sniper came and shot at her wings. A bullet cleared right through the thin membrane. She let out a long, horrible screech when more punctured her wings. Unable to fly, she fell to the ground. Max and Ben watched in horror as she plummeted down into the same woods she had found the egg. They rushed to the RV to find Gwen before the police. In no time, the RV was on the road. Max saw something in the corner of his eye and slammed on the brakes. Ben heard a swoosh and a thud. The RV came to a screeching stop. There, in front of the RV, was the mother dragon. Okay, let's move on to chapter 8. This one's a little bit longer. As soon as Ben realized what was going on, it was too late. The dragon grabbed the RV and ripped off the roof. She grabbed Max, then went for Ben. He tried to dodge it, but was too slow. Once she had them in her paws, she pinned them to the ground. She brought her large sapphire eyes down the Max, don't you mean down on Max, and looked him over carefully. She stared for more than 5 minutes. After she was done, she swung her head over to Ben. It was very uncomfortable for him under the large, unblinking eye. Her mighty head lifted and she bared her fangs. They can hear her rumble They can hear her rumble in her chest with anger. Ben screamed out in pain as claws gripped him and dug themselves into his arms. No, Max yelled while tears came to his eyes. She lifted her head and turned around as if she heard something. She looked back at them, then she flew off to the forest. We have to help Gwen, replied Ben while rubbing his sides. The two went back to the RV and drove... Okay, why is the D in drove capitalized? It doesn't need to be capitalized. Drove off as fast as it can go. Max and Ben raced to get there before the mother. Ben, struggling against the speed, asked, do you think once the rightful mom gets the egg, Gwen will turn back to normal? Max sighed. Maybe. All we can do is hope. They came close because of the snapped branches up in the trees. They found Gwen on the ground with her bloody wings stretched out. Her breathing was labored and fast. Barely alive, she growled when Ben came near her. She tried to stand but could not. A bullet went through her front left wing. Ben and Max were nearly in tears when they saw her suffer. The egg was right behind her. It was blood-stained too. Ben was able to speak after a few moments. Whoa, Gwen, what happened?
What happened? Well, if she has a ton of holes in her wings, I would guess that she got shot multiple times by gunfire.
What type of question is that? She just answered with a growl. Max walked closer, talking soft. Softly, you mean? Gwen, let us help. I have a first aid kit in the RV. You are going to bleed to death without help. Gwen looked at him in the eyes. He could tell she needed help. Her eyes were pleading, but her dragon instincts told her to stay away. She took all of her strength to speak. Well, why should you help me? She asked, choking. Before he could answer, the mother appeared on silent wings. Punctuation mark at the end of that would be nice. The mother dragon glared at Gwen, and Gwen looked to her. Ben and Max knew at a clash of wills was about to happen, even though there was no way she could fight. Gwen tried to get up again, but only bled more. Max whispered to Ben, Ben, you have to help her. She could die without fighting. I know. Just then the mother charged at Gwen with jaw agape. Don't you mean with her jaw agape? Right before she struck, something grabbed her tail and threw her 30 feet into the air. It was Forearms. This just helped the mother. She snapped open her wings and flew high up until she was hidden in a large cloud. Knowing what was going to happen, he yelled, Grandpa, get Gwen some help. I'll hold off Scale Flapper. Max nodded and rushed to the RV. He came back with a first aid kit, towels, and tweezers. Forearms went away from them and waited for the mother. It was a strenuous wait with adrenaline pumping. Every moving thing made him tense. Then there she was, coming straight down with a long tongue of flame spewing out of her jaws. That's the end of Chapter 8. Let's move on to Chapter 9. Max was going as fast as he could. First he tried to get the bullet out of her leg, but she nipped at him for getting too close to her head. He would look back to see if the mother spotted him. Forearms was having trouble trying to keep her away from Gwen. She blew fire at him, but only pushed him back and burned his arms a bit. While he was recovering, the dragon saw Max and roared, pushing herself off with strong legs, and was up in the air in only a few strokes of the wings. She flew straight at him. Gwen opened her eyes and saw her before Max. She waited until she was closer and blew out fire with a hint of blue at her face. The mother spun and crashed right next to them. Gwen now had the strength to get up and went to her, let out another scream. Now the mother's head was behind her and next to the egg. She opened her eye, I guess she's a cyclops, and gazed at the egg. She roared when the fire hit her right on the back. She got up and blew at Gwen. She missed and it went to Max. Seeing this, Gwen pushed him out of the way, but in turn got struck by the blow. This time she fell on the ground and did not get up. Her short breathing became small gasps until it stopped. Forearms looked over and saw everything. No, he cried, going down on his knees. He started weeping until he remembered the mother dragon. Anger welled inside. Inside should be one word, not two, giving him new strength. He looked up and charged at the monster. He yelled out, unable to keep it inside. He jumped up and bashed the mother on the back. She tried to reach him but couldn't. She shot up and rolled in the air, barely hanging on, forearms wrapped around her back and pulled on the wings. He pinned them down, struggling. Unable to fly, she fell just like Gwen did, right before they hit the trees. He jumped off her and landed on the RV. When she felt her wings free, she shot them out, but it was too late. She crashed into the trees. Their branches grabbed at her wings, tearing them. She hit the ground hard. She landed just like Gwen did with her wings out too. Now they were too torn to fly. Forearms went to her to finish it. He lifted his arms to deliver the final blow when he saw her eyes. They were mixed with fear, sorrow, and depression, and desperation. She seemed to be crying. Tears ran down her jaws and fell on the dry dust. Seeing this made him feel horrible. He lowered his arms and left her. He went and put his arms around the shoulder of Max, who was standing next to Gwen. "This can't be happening. It just can't," Forearms mumbled. Then the Omnitrix powered down. Standing in his place was Ben. He did not notice Gwen's eyes starting to open. Okay, I should say he did not notice that Gwen's eyes were starting to open. Gwen started to open her eyes. Oh, you just said her eyes were starting to open! And as her chest expanded from her breathing, she took a deep breath and shook her head. Ben looked up and saw as she tried to get up. In disbelief, he said, "Grandpa, look." Max just whispered, "Why is the W whispered capitalized?" Not now, Ben," and continued crying softly. "But look at Gwen," he exclaimed. Max lifted his head and wiped away tears. He leapt to his feet and laughed. Gwen was now up and fanning her wings to get rid of the dirt. Max and Ben ran to her and hugged her neck. Max looked at her and said, "It's a miracle. Gwen, I thought I lost you." He croaked up the worked, followed by a stream of tears. Okay. Gwen was happy but did not forget the mother dragon. The dragon was now up and tending Hewy Toonmore wing. Okay, why the heck are they suddenly... I don't get it. Are they like healing really quickly? I don't know. She looked Gwen in the eyes as Gwen looked at her. She still had the mother instinct fire in her eyes. Gwen heard a loud squeak come from the egg. She looked at it. The egg rolled on the ground and shook. With a series of squeaks, it started to crack and break. The cracks met at the top. A small piece lifted and wobbled as if it was balancing on something. It fell to the ground and more broke off. A tiny dark blue head emerged and looked around. It struggled to get the rest of its body out. The rest broke off as it crawled out. There, sitting in front of them, was a baby dragon. No, it's a baby giraffe. Of course it's a dragon. Okay, let's go on to the final chapter. The baby poked its head out and blinked. It took a breath and began to coo. Gwen understood what it was saying. She also began to coo. Ben was confused. Gwen began to speak again in her booming voice. "Bring him to me." Ben understood that. He began to move toward the dragon. Cautiously, he picked it up and carried it to Gwen. The baby dragon began to weep. Its eyes filled with tears as the baby cried on her wounds. They began to close up and heal. Gwen began to think. Her brain began to throb. All in all, she decided that the dragon should be released. She looked at the dragon and began to coo. It replies in a coo as well. It waddled over to the mother dragon. The mother opened her eyes slowly. She cuddled with the dragon as if it was mist, and it was. The mother dragon began to get up sluggishly. The little dragon began to hop on her. With enough strength, the mother dragon got up and began to walk away. In a last word, she began to roar to Gwen, which was a salutation call. After his deed was done, the young dragon lost interest and looked around. I don't get it. What the hell is going on here? Ben, Max, and Gwen watched in wonder as it explored his new surroundings. He would squeak when he bumped into a tree or tripped over a root. After he tripped again, Gwen reached out with her long neck and picked him up like a cat with a kitten and set him down in front of her. Ben went down to stroke it. The indigo scales were still a little damp but very warm to the touch. He moved his hand down the back to the tip of the tail. He could feel the lumps at the end where the spikes would eventually grow. There were also lumps on his forehead. The mother saw the baby and looked at it with soft, loving eyes. She got up and went to it. The young hatchling squeaked excitedly as the approaching mother. At the approaching mother. He nuzzled at her leg until she looked down at him. Gwen heard the mother ask, "Now, what is your name?" To Max and Ben, they were only rolled rumbles, but to Gwen, they were words. "Eridor," he squeaked. "Eridor," Gwen whispered. "I like that." Eridor walked away from the mother and went to look at the one of the giant oaks. He stared in wonder with eyes growing wide. He made a small grin and dug his claws into the bark. He slowly climbed up to the highest branch. He went to the edge and looked down. Taking a deep breath, Eridor jumped off. He opened his wings and tried to fly. Instead, he just glided down. Gwen chuckled. He must be trying to fly. After watching him a few more times, Gwen got up and went to him. The mother charged in front of Gwen and roared, "Do not come near my young if you want to live." Gwen replied, "He is mine." Okay, this is kind of contradicting what was stated in the beginning of this chapter, with Gwen thinking that the dragon needed to be released and stuff. I don't get it. Ben and Max stared, thinking of a way to resolve it. Max looked up and said, "Why not make the baby choose?" So they can suddenly understand what the dragons are saying now. Gwen and the mother locked eyes, each glaring at each other. They agreed. Gwen reached for Eridor, but the mother stopped her. Gwen swept back and let the mother put him in between them. Gwen got to eye level with him and said, "Now, Eridor, you must choose who you want to be your mother." Eridor just blinked and glanced at the mother, then at Gwen again. After a while of glancing, Eridor took a step to Gwen but stopped. He looked at the mother in the eyes and ran to her. Gwen just stood there, frozen in her spot. But I'm your mom." Eridor turned around and said, "Sorry, but you're not my mom. You don't look like her, sound like her, or smell like her." Smoke trailed from Gwen's nostrils with hate, but soon it stopped to be replaced with tears. The mother scooped up Eridor and flew off to the place the egg originally was. Ben and Max never saw Gwen cry as hard as she did. She went to wipe her tears, but stopped to look at her claws. What happened to me? What am I? Gwen walked up to her and answered, "Gwen, you are a dragon." She turned around to face him. Her face was soaked with tears. "How did this happen to me? Just how?" Ben went up to speak. "We learned that the mom put a spell over the egg. It was meant to kill. Good thing you turned into a dragon instead, huh?" "Heh, yeah, I guess so." She looked up smiling. "It was more like bearing fangs." Ben smiled back. Max asked, Max asked, "So why don't we head back to the RV?" Ben looked at his watch. "Looks like we need more time for it to recharge." Gwen just laughed. "No worries, I can carry you. I hope I change back." Ben and Max chuckled. "You're not the only one, Gwen." While they were flying, Ben noticed that Gwen's horns were shrinking until they disappeared. She was turning back into a human. The wings did not seem to change, so he did not worry. Her snout was pushing back and her claws slowly became hands. A sudden gust of wind hit Gwen, causing her to arch her back, you mean? Gwen fell back. Ben fell back. Now he was only hanging on to her tail. Max looked back and yelled over the wind, "Hold on, Ben, we're almost there." Ben just mumbled. Ben hit the ground with a slow thump, just in time before Gwen's tail started to grow short. Gwen hovered for a moment until the wings were too small. She will miss the feeling of flight. Now she was human except for her skin still being blue. With a look of relief, she sighed. "It's good to be back. It's good to have you back," Max said with loving eyes. Gwen went inside to see if she was normal again. She went into the bathroom. Ben heard her scream, "I'm blue!" She came out looking frustrated. Ben shrugged. "You're just blue. So what? Also, it looks like you still have a tail." She looked around to see a long blue tail behind her. Now she was even more upset. "Ugh, this is just great. How long do you think it will last? I hope it will be gone tomorrow." Max just chuckled. "Anyway, who's hungry?" Gwen, okay, it should say Gwen, but they have it say Jen perked up. "I am, boy, I can eat a whole cow." Ben and Max stared at her. Gwen was just shooed don't you mean shook her head and left? Not literally. She went back to the room to get ready. She noticed a small purple flower on her bed. It was the same kind that were around the nest she found the egg. She picked it up to smell it. She knew who put it there. She did not tell anyone about it and still had it. And they went for a nice peaceful dinner. And that is the end of Maternal Instincts. Oh boy. I have to give Hewy Lewis some credit. This was a very, very creative story. It was a little too long, in my opinion, though. Some of the chapters were kind of pointless. The character of Nick didn't really play much of a role. The only thing he played a role for was finding out about what happened to Gwen and stuff. But then his character kind of just disappeared. The spelling and grammar could have been a lot better. I mean, it wasn't a horrible story, but it wasn't exactly the best story in the world either. Now, mind you, this is one of Hewy Lewis's first stories. In fact, this was written back in 2006, and you've seen my reviews of his other fanfics, and those are a lot better. But at the same time, those were written with other people. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I can truly judge him on this because this was written a while ago. I'm sure his spelling and grammar has improved since then, but I don't know. I mean, at least it was a story that was written completely by him, and it was pretty creative. So I wouldn't say it was a horrible story. Well, I'm the fanfic critic. I read it, you listen, and I should probably finish this before it turns cold. And I'm just going to get up and leave the room anyway because that's how my show ends.